G'day, Professor Joseph Drew here. I'm here to ask and answer the question, can your local government survive 2022? There couldn't be a more important question, so please watch all the way through the video and hopefully I can give you some advice and help to make sure that you do indeed survive. So a lot of people think that the challenges of COVID are over at the end of 2021. A lot of them haven't even started yet. So we still have COVID lurking out there and new variants, and that could derail everything. We've still got people in higher tiers of government that want to do lockdowns and other programs that could derail everything. We've got those higher tiers of government under a lot of budgetary stress themselves. An obvious response, a response they've chosen to use before, is to freeze the financial assistance grants, which means that in real terms you'll get less money. We've got inflation. We're about to enter into an inflation super cycle. Just about everyone understands that except for the Reserve Bank of Australia and the federal government. Look at the producer price indices in China and America, 9 point something percent. This idea that we'll stay in the 2 to 3% inflation band is just fanciful. And unfortunately, inflation sticks. It sticks for a long time. If you lived through the late 80s or the 70s, you know that despite huge increases in interest rates, it took years and years and years for inflation to go down again. The Great Resignation hasn't really started in Australia yet, but we're following what's happening in every other country, and it will start. People will be leaving their local government jobs to go to private industry where they can earn more, where they're in demand, because a lot of people are bringing forward their retirement plans. There's not going to be enough skilled staff in particular to go around. We're going to have high demand on sick leaves. With each new variant, people are going to have to go, people will get tested, they'll have to quarantine, they may be sick for long periods of time. So there'll be huge, higher demands on sick leave. There will be lower demands for some services, depending what happens with COVID and public responses to COVID. So if your council runs holiday parks, or if you're charging the trade waste or inspections of business and premises, a lot of that revenue is going to continue to be cut back, particularly if we go to below trend growth, which is almost certainly going to happen after this post release from lockdown boom goes away, where a lot of big name commentators are now saying to expect below trend economic growth for quite a long period of time. So that's going to affect demand for a lot of local government services, which is going to reduce your revenue. And there's going to be higher outstanding taxes and charges, fees that people and taxes that people simply can't pay because they're in financial difficulty, because COVID has worked out not so bad in a financial way for some people, for some demographics. Other demographics have been absolutely pummeled. If you worked in the services sector, you're struggling, you're really struggling. You're going to struggle more and more to pay your local government taxes and fees. So there's so many challenges out there, and what you need to do is get expert advice. That's why I created this channel, because no one's out there trying to help local government in the way that I think you need the help. So I'm doing this, I'm giving freely of my time. I get nothing out of this. Help me help others. Flick this video around to other local governments. I want more and more councillors, more local government executives to be hearing these messages, to get them thinking about things. And by all means, if you've got things you want me to cover in a video, send me a comment and I will cover it eventually. I'm a little bit behind at the moment, I realise that. Do not be comforted by the regulatory ratios. Most states have certain ratios and certain benchmarks, and you're supposed to meet those benchmarks. Do not think for a minute that you're meeting that benchmark means that you are definitely financially sustainable, that you won't join the two financially failed local governments that already are out there in Australia, and there's many more that could easily fall into that category over the next 12 months. Don't be misled by pretend experts or commercial consultants. People need to be able to show you their expertise. They need to be able to prove it. If they're a commercial consulting firm, remember, they're in the business of making money. A lot of them won't even put their name behind their work, the name of the authors of the report. It'll just be branded according to the company's logo. I would be very cautious about accepting any work that someone wasn't prepared to put their name to. So be very, very careful with these commercial consulting firms. They've caused so much havoc, so much expense and so much suffering in the local government community. We just need to be much more careful about them, and help me advocate for some really important changes that need to be made. My recent video is Local Government Financial Sustainability in Peril. I list some of the things that we need to do as a nation to fix things, to make our local governments stronger and more financially sustainable. Think about those ideas and think about how we could advocate together to get the changes in place that we need to make in order to survive not just 2022 but the next year as well. So some important things you should be thinking about for the coming year. Know how much unrestricted cash you have. You should be checking this on a weekly or monthly basis, and you should be able to recite the number. That is the critical thing. When you run out of unrestricted cash, it's all over. Revise your long-term financial plan. They all need to be revised. Inflation rates are going up. That means materials and contract costs will go up. It means that wages will go up. We know with communities that operate under the rate cap scheme that the rate caps aren't going to be sufficient because people haven't been looking forward. The authorities were looking forward. They'd realised that we're going into a high inflation cycle, and rate caps of 0.7% and the like just aren't going to do it. You're going to have to bring all this new information about inflation and wages and rate caps into your long-term financial plans and recalculate them to make sure you can indeed survive. Educate your community is the most important thing. That's what this channel's all about. Flick it to people. Use it on your website, your council website, if there's a particular video that's useful. I don't care how you use it and how often you use it, whether you give me any credit or not. I simply want to help. I simply want to avoid more disasters and more suffering. So educate your community. It's so important. We need to make sure their expectations are reasonable and that they understand the challenges that local government's working under. Review all your fees and charges. Emphasize the levying of a fee wherever it's appropriate. So it's much better and much more moral than using the common tax pill. I've got videos out there about how to do it. It needs to be done from a supply side perspective. You need to be charging a fee that covers the cost of producing the item and also covers future maintenance and capital expenditure that you know will be required. Most councils don't use a supply side methodology to get their fees and prices accurate, and I think you really need to look at that in the coming year, particularly if you're in a rate cap environment. Plan for a special rate variation if you're in Victoria or New South Wales with rate capping. A lot of councils are going to need it next year. We've got this high inflation, we've got the great resignation, we've got the stress and the lower economic growth that's likely to occur. That means in all likelihood you're going to have to go for higher rates next year. So start thinking about it now. Mostly you've got to put your hand up by November, but the planning should be starting mid-year next year at the very latest. Reconsider any discretionary projects that don't need to go ahead. How about deferring them for a year until we see how bad things are going to be? As I say, the worst consequences of the COVID and COVID public policy responses haven't actually hit us yet. So if you can defer something for 12 months, defer it for 12 months or 24 months. Think carefully about it. Know your debt capacity. Know how much debt you can take on. And that is not going to be covered by those silly little ratios we have, like the debt service ratio and the net financial liabilities ratios. They're just not up to the job. You need to have proper debt capacity modeling. Do not rely on banks telling you whether you can or cannot afford debt. They're in the business of lending money, and they know the push comes to shove. If the council goes broke, there will be a bailout and they'll still get their money. So do not rely on that as any level of comfort as to whether you can actually afford the debt or not. Get yourself a copy of Saving Local Government. I get nothing out of selling the book. I spent 6 to 9 months, full 12-hour days writing the books, and it was there to give you information. It was there to help, and that's what this channel is all about as well. So get yourself a copy of that book and read it and watch more of these videos. As I say, use these videos, flick them around to your mates. The more people that see them, the more help we get. Flick them around to your community. The more they understand the issues, the less demands they might place on their council, and the more understanding they'll be of your situation. So in summary, we've got a lot of challenges next year and the year after. It's going to be more challenging than probably any year that you've ever gone through before. And I just ask, please help me to help you, help me to help others, and let's get through this together. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.